Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of my Case 188 diesel rebuild and refurbish and restoration and all that. You can see we're a little bit packed in the shop. I brought my big welding table in that's nice and flat and sturdy, should be able to hold up the block. I borrowed my coworker's engine hoist and that just barely fits in here. And I'm about to, even got a load leveler too, we're official today. I'm about to lift this motor up onto here. I got this piece of plywood with these two holes drilled in it because the head surface, even though it's mostly flat, it has these two little tubes, one here and one on the other side. I assume for probably water. I don't know. But anyway, I want it to sit flat so those tubes will sit right in there. So let's lift her up. Okay, got her safely on the table. Just a little side note here, you could see where the engine stand was rubbing really badly and making it really hard to turn. If you've seen my engine stand review video, you'll see how difficult it is to turn. So when I do put this back on the stand, I'm going to slather this with some grease. And another thing I'm going to do that I didn't realize when I first put this plate on is that these studs are pretty much touching, and obviously it makes it hard to turn the crank around. So after I take this off, I'm going to take these arms off and reinstall them with some washers, I guess in between these two pieces, to move this plate further back, and then I can more easily rotate this around. So anyway, I'm going to start. Oh, no, push something over. Anyway, I'm going to start by taking this off, and then we can access the rear main seal retainer. Alright, so I took out all of the retaining bolts holding the rear main seal retainer in. Something kind of funny, there's 3 bolts. There's one here, here, and here, and I just thought they were dowel pins because they looked round because there was so much grease and gunk in there, and I couldn't get it off. I realized those were bolts. And the bolts that go through these holes in these raised bosses are longer compared to the other bolts that go through over here. And like always, they'll be bagged and tagged. Now this ought to come right off. Yep. And that's all there is to it. There's a gasket here. This gasket's going to get peeled off, and I'll pound out the oil seal. I'm not going to show you that. It's pretty straightforward. Just use a soft punch, either steel or brass, something with a sharp edge, just to hook. Let's see if I can show you. See, right there is the metal lip of the oil seal. You just got to punch right on there and tap it here, tap it there, tap it over here, over there, and you just keep working side and side, back and forth until you work it out. You don't want to hammer it too much on one side, and I mean, it might not matter that much because you're going to replace the seal anyway, but it's just good practice, especially when you're putting a new seal in. You want to put that in evenly. That's most important, but it's good practice to do the same thing when you're taking them out. Now, I know that's kind of elementary. I don't know. I'm sure my viewers have all sorts of different backgrounds. Some are beginners and some are seasoned restoration people. So I'm going to try to focus on things like that, but also try to give you the big picture and not waste too much time on little things. But anyway, just leave a comment, leave a suggestion. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear me talk about more, what you want to hear me shut up about. So anyway, that's off. I'm going to clean this up and go on to the next thing, which would be main bearings. So here's all the main bearings. Something important to note on the, let's see, this would be number 1 main bearing here. Remember, there were those shims that shimmed the the oil pump gears to the crankshaft gear to make sure to take those shims off and to label them and to put them aside safely somewhere. Now all these bolts are loose, so I'm just going to go ahead and take these out and pull the bearings off. Alright, well, I was knocking the bearings out of these and cleaning them up a little bit. I noticed that I was wrong. These do have arrows. Each bearing has an arrow. Bearings 2 through 5 have cast arrows like this. And number 1 bearing has that scribed arrow. Now the strange thing is, I looked through my notes of how the bearings were oriented, and bearings 2 through 5 were all pointing towards the cam, which makes sense to me, but the last bearing was pointing away from the cam. So it's possible that this motor had been rebuilt, or at least the bottom end, the bearing, something has been worked on, and they just put that bearing in incorrectly. I was kind of betting on this motor having been untouched, just due to the buildup of gunk and grime and just shit all over it, and the goo in the oil pan. So, you know, I don't know, who knows. It's interesting uncovering some mysteries that will never be solved. But anyway, this crank is ready to come out. So I need to eye a place. Let me clean up a place over here where I can put the crank down. And I'm ready to pop it out. Let's see. Should come out pretty easy, I guess. There we go. Get a good hold on it. Don't drop it. Okay. Oh. That is out. That is cool. Alright, that is almost a bare block. The last thing is the camshaft, so I'm going to knock these bottom or top bearings out and we'll get to work on the camshaft here. So like I've mentioned before, this manual is slightly newer than my motor, and I can tell because they've made some design improvements. Here's the camshaft, and the camshaft gear rather, and there's 2 holes here, and it says align holes in cam gear with thrust plate mounting bolts, and then loosen the mounting bolts. Look how easy that is. Well, there's one hole in my cam gear that doesn't quite align with the bolts. You can see it down in there. So I'm going to have to modify a wrench. See if I try to stick this wrench in there. You can see it almost catching, but well, you can't really see on the camera, but the wrench is going in angled and it's hitting the gear and it's not getting engaged in what it should be getting engaged in. So I'm going to do some grinding and make another special tool. Well, I got it loose. Well, I got one of them loose anyway. First I tried modifying my 1/2-inch wrench, but this 1/2-inch wrench is about 520 thousandths, which was too big. So I had to take this 12mm wrench, file it a little bit larger. I'm not sure what size it is, but it's a little bit larger than 12mm, which is 475 thousandths or so. Sneaked it in there, got it on the head, and I had to do 2 different things that people on my Harbor Freight Wrenches video said is an absolute fucking no-no. Because, you know, they're know-it-alls. Obviously, they know what they're doing, and I don't. I used a hammer to tap on the wrench, and big no-no, I hooked 2 wrenches together. They say I should have used a breaker bar or something, but how the hell are you supposed to get a breaker bar in there? I did what I needed to do. I used the wrench, didn't break anything. Everybody lived. I got the job done. Anyway, so now let's tackle the other one. Oh, of course, I did use a little bit of the blue wrench just to help things out a little bit, but got it off, got the other one off, and I'll slide the cam out. I got it out, finally. What a pain in the ass. But I got there's the cam. A little spot of rust on it, but I don't think that's a big deal at all. Most of the, let's see, I'm just starting to look at it now. This one, there's a little score mark there on the journal. I don't know, it's decent. But, I mean, look at what a stupid design. Here's that retainer plate. Obviously doesn't come off, and you can't even get these bolts out if you wanted to. Say you stripped one of the heads, you have to pull this gear off, and that gear is heat shrunk on there, so that motherfucker is really not gonna want to go anywhere. So that's kind of stupid, but it's an earlier motor, and I can see that they did make an attempt to improve things a little bit, judging by the manual. But down in here, here's the tappets. These seemed a little sticky, so see, I can't really pull any out with one hand. Oh, here's one. So I'll pull these out, check them out. That is a little grungy looking, but this particular one feels nice and smooth. It looks clean, not scored or anything. So I'll pull all these tappets out. Again, bag and tag them. Make sure they go back in the same holes, and clean them up and everything. And that's it. That is a bare block. I don't think I'm making a liar out of myself. I mean, unless you want to take the oil filter housing off, that is 100% clean. So, well, I guess one last thing is the camshaft bushings are still in there, which I'm going to have to pull out. But besides that, it's a clean block. So I think I might have the machine shop pull those camshaft bearings out, because I don't have the puller, and I could make one, but I might just as well have them pull it out if they don't charge me too much for it. And so I'm going to load this up in my truck, bring it to the machine shop along with the head, and have them hot tank this, magnaflux it, check it for cracks, deck the surface of the head, or the head mounting surface, make sure it's nice and flat, and hopefully do the cam bushings, and I'll have a nice fresh clean block ready to go, and a nice fresh head ready to put this thing back together. So I think that just about concludes the second segment of my series here. So stay tuned for more. It'll be a while before my third video, because I'm just going to have to go to the machine shop. I'm going to have to wait for them and all that. So be patient, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, all that good stuff. So stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.